But we're going to talk about Buddha this morning as we're going along and alternating and teaching Buddha. And what we have found as we've gone over the past weeks in the teachings of Buddha is simply this. This is what Buddha found and tried to share with us, is that the fundamental cause of suffering lies nowhere else but buried deep within ourselves. Deep within ourselves. And he says that the cause is simply negative impulses. Negative impulses inside of ourselves. This is a teaching that was done by a man 700 to 1,000 years before Jesus was born. Okay, negative impulses inside of ourselves. And Jesus Christ said in Luke 11:52, and I don't even have, oh, here's the Bible. Luke 11:52. Jesus Christ, let's take a look at that, okay? It's on page 92 of the New Testament. And here is what Buddha says, that the causes of suffering are inside of ourselves, and that they are caused by negative impulses within inside of ourselves. And take a look at Luke chapter 11 on page 92 of those little Bibles in the New Testament. Luke chapter 11. That's what I said, 71. You know, that's a great trick of mine to see if you're paying attention, isn't it? No, it isn't. I thought it was 90. But anyhow, Luke 11:52, all right, on page 71. Jesus Christ is talking to the people who are those who teach the Bible, those who put together the religious law, okay? And what does he say? Woe unto you, lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. You've taken it away. It's gone. How come? You entered not in yourself. Because you didn't enter within yourself, you do not have the knowledge of what you are, what goes on within you, what is the purpose of life, what is your purpose. And not only that, but look, and you can see what goes on outside here when people try to attack the building and all this stuff. And them that were entering in, you hindered. Do you see that? This is what I don't understand. The people who can be so adamant against what happens here as we teach the kingdom within, and they are so hostile to it, yet here Jesus Christ is teaching the kingdom within. Jesus Christ is teaching that you take away the key of knowledge because you don't enter within yourself. But Buddha says this is your problem. Now think about it. And I want you to listen to his words given 3,000 years ago. Much of your problem is you spend a great deal of time trying to cover up or stifle those aspects of yourself that you feel are unattractive or unacceptable. You have decided that there is something in your nature that is unattractive or unacceptable to others, so you spend most of your life trying to cover that up and give a false appearance of what you are to everybody else. And you are in a constant struggle with yourself that the others do not find out what you're really like. And that, according to Shakyamuni Buddha, is the cause of suffering. And he says that all we accomplish by doing this is stress and anxiety, because the 10 worlds are inherent in every single human being. Every single one of us in this room has within us something that we don't want the rest of you to know about. Look around. And it's true, see? So that you can relax. There is nobody sitting here who does not have the same things going on within them that you do. Maybe a little different type, but it's all the same, and they want to hide it from the rest of us. So they have Bibles, and they sing songs, and the churches are big, and all of these things, and that makes us feel, say, that we've come into some oasis, but we're still carrying this with us. And even in the middle of the Crystal Cathedral, St. Patrick's Cathedral, or this little place, when you come in here, every so often this will turn on and kick you into that place where you don't want anybody else to know that you're there. But you are there. And Buddha says that our problems are that we don't understand that is normal. What we're trying to do by suppressing it is abnormal. And that's what causes the disease. That's what causes the stress. That's what causes the hurt. So the beauty then is that Buddha is saying you don't have to feel guilty about your weaknesses because everybody has them. They're absolutely normal. There is nothing to be guilty of. It's perfectly normal to feel the way you do, even those strange feelings that you have, no matter what they are. They're perfectly normal, but by trying to suppress them, you're making yourself crazy. And you're getting an abrasiveness with other people. See? Look at page 1, I hope this is right, 148 in your New Testament in the book of Romans, Romans chapter 7. And look what the Apostle Paul says. Romans chapter 7, okay? And look at verse 15. And this is exactly what he's saying. This is exactly what Buddha is saying. And Paul says, for that which I do, I allow not. In other words, I tell other people not to do what I do. What's he into? He's a preacher. See, couldn't Jimmy Swaggart have said the same thing? For that which I do, I don't allow other people to do. Because I say, that's a sin of the devil. But I'm doing it. But I don't want them to know about it. But he got caught. Paul never got caught. But he was doing it because he said he was doing it. Okay? For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that I don't do. The things that I should do, I don't do. But what I hate, that's what I do. What I know is wrong is what I do. What I know is right is what I don't do. But what I tell other people to do is completely different. Okay? So look what he says in verse 17. Now then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwells in me. And what did we learn? What is sin? Sin is the moon goddess. See, this is why people come down and they write things on the wall. They don't understand. The name of the moon goddess is sin, and the moon means your emotions because it reflects whatever is shined on it. If it's the light of Christ, then it'll reflect that. If it is the lower light, it'll reflect that, and that is what sin is. Sin is dwelling in the emotions. When you are dwelling in sin, you are dwelling in your emotions. That's all it is. It's all it ever was. And then as religion came along, we decided it's if girls wear slacks, or if you go to Atlantic City, or if you smoke or you drink. All of these things are, and that's not what it is. Sin is dwelling in the emotions. And if you look in a book of mythology, you'll see that the moon goddess is named Sin. Okay. You can go to a library to prove that one. You don't have to come to a church. That's what sin is. Anybody, at least you can walk out of here this morning and anybody says, do you know what sin is? You say, yeah, it's the moon goddess. And that's all it is. And it's the moon goddess because the moon reflects the light of whatever is shown on it. So if you have that which is the lower nature shining on it, that's your dwelling in sin. But if you have the higher nature shining on it, you're dwelling in God. It's the Christ light that shines upon it. So it reflects whatever is shown upon it, okay? But here Paul says the same thing that Buddha said. Why get guilty about it? Because you can't do anything about it. You're all in this little box, and you got everybody believing that you're in your Sunday school and you're doing all of these wonderful things, but when you close the door and then you're in your little fantasies, just think about them. Everybody, when I say that, stare straight ahead. Nobody ever looks. I don't want to, if I smile, he'll know it's me, so I don't want to smile. So I'll look very straight, you know. But it's nonetheless, it's true. So, what does Buddha say? How do you deal with it? How do you deal with the impulses? Fine. He says, chant. Nam Myoho Ringe Kyo. Chant. Meditate. Reverence for that which is the invisible, which manifests itself into the visible. Knowledge of the law of cause and effect, and that which flows out of the lips, out of your mouth to God. Divine positive energies. So what you do then is you stop trying to cover over your shortcomings and suppress them, because Buddha says what you're doing is you're pushing them down deeper and deeper like a tightly coiled spring. And you can sit on them just so long, and the slightest slip, boom! And it's worse than it was the last time you did it. Because you've repressed it. Oh, I don't do that anymore. Yes, you do. It's just waiting for you to make one little move and the spring is going to spring back. And there's nothing to do about it. See him shaking his head. Everyone shakes their head. Say, because it's true. It happens to me. It happens to everybody. One of the things you have to get used to is take a man like Shakyamuni Buddha, who taught you how to avoid suffering, and don't allow people to tell you it's evil. And somebody came in, one day somebody said, well, why do you have these other books like the Bhagavad Gita and Buddha? Why don't you just have the Bible? I said, did you ever go in a Christian bookstore? Why do they have other books besides Bibles? Why don't they just have 50 million Bibles? Why then are we not, and the only reason that you're not able or haven't heard of Buddha before is because the leadership has said it's evil. But then when you start to study, you find out, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. It's not evil. Because I see you shaking your head, Shakyamuni Buddha defined exactly what is the cause of suffering and the problems of the mind. And he said, don't press down on your shortcomings. Don't get guilt. Let yourself express yourself, because all you're doing is setting that spring up, and when it pops, it's really going to be a son of a gun. You're going to hold them down for a while. But what he says to do then is, instead of trying to hold them down, concern yourself with total transformation. The power of hell becomes the power of heaven. That's what the Apostle Paul says, be renewed in your mind. This is what I've told you before. This is what you've got to know, okay? The power of God. There is only one power. It enters into you. That's you, okay? When that power enters in, it splits. Part of it goes to the lower, part of it goes to the higher. If you take that which is the lower power, it's evil. If you take that which is the higher power, it's salvation. It depends on you. It doesn't depend on God. There is still only one power. There is no other power. No other power exists in the universe but God. There is no other power. It can either be evil, it can be good. Look, there is no, this is the announcement that you might want to, there is no devil. There is no such thing. It doesn't exist. It is created in here. Okay? How do I know? The Bible tells me so. You see, Satan is what it means is darkness. Okay? It's the limitation of righteousness. It's darkness, and it is the lower aspects of the planet Saturn. Satan and Saturn are the same things. Okay? So, when Jesus was in the in the earth and doing his thing, his adversary was Satan. Satan, that word Satan, the root of that word Satan is Set. Set, if you go back into the most ancient religions, was an adversary of Horus. Okay? Interesting. Jesus was born of a virgin. Horus was born of a virgin. When Osiris, who was God, who gave his life for all mankind, died, his wife Isis, which is of the word Israel, lied on his body, and through the manifestation of spirit conceived Horus, gave birth to Horus, which was the child king. Okay? Horus then was set upon by Set, who tempted him and went through the whole thing. Jesus, who was born of the Virgin Mary, was set upon by Satan, and it's the same thing. It came from the same place. Okay? Now, let me show you what I'm talking about, because I want you to see it. Go to page 152 in the Bible. And go to Romans chapter 13, okay? And the point being, if you want to make up stories, and if you want to make up things so that you can pass why is it so dangerous that you believe in Satan and you believe in devils? Because as long as you believe in the devil, as long as you believe in Satan, you're going to be concentrating on an enemy that doesn't exist and not finding the enemy that does exist, which is yourself. It distracts you from the real enemy, which is yourself, and gets you looking at an enemy that doesn't exist, passing the buck to for all of your shortcomings. Romans chapter 13, okay? We're talking about entering into meditation. Buddha said, chant Nam Myoho, ascend into Nirvana. The Apostle Paul says this, and he's talking to you, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. And now what's the next sentence? For there is no power but of God, and the powers that be are ordained of God. There is no power of the devil. There is no power of Satan. There is no power of demons. There is no power of hell, because the only power that exists in the universe is God. It says it in the Bible. And I don't care what they've made up, and I don't care what they've tried to scare the children with, and I don't care what they've tried to scare you with. They've got to open this book and understand that the power that exists in the universe is God, and there is no other power. And it is not that power which is evil. It is when you disobey those who have taught you as to how to use that power, you make it evil. If you get here and you mess with this electricity and you don't know what you're doing, you'll burn the house down, burn the building down. If you touch this electricity and you do know what you're doing, you light up the building. It's the same power. It's not the power that's evil, it's how you handle the power. Okay? So what I have said here is that that same evil is as much of God is that which is good, depending on how you use it. Come with me. Go to page 609 in the Old Testament to the book of Isaiah. And go to Isaiah chapter 45. Okay? It's amazing to me that people who will fight against this and fight against this have to have a devil. They've got to have it because they've always got to have somebody to pass the buck to. And you can see them on television. Oh, Satan is attacking. Satan's attacking nothing. They're screwing it up. Just have the guts to say, I'm screwing it up. And then you can deal with it. Okay? And what am I talking about? There's only one power. There's no. What am I talking about? How could possibly God create evil? How could God? Look, Isaiah 45, verse 5. I am the Lord. Watch this next one. And there is none else. There is nobody else. Will you please go up to these churches and tell them it's a joke? There is nobody else. There is no God beside me. I girded you, though you have not known me. Why? Because you haven't entered within yourself. That you may know from the rising of the sun and from the west, there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Now go on to the next one. I form the light. I create the darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Stop passing a buck to a devil. It's in the book? Is it in the book? Say somebody. Because I thought maybe that's my book. You know why that's good? Because God says you're making up stuff here. You're taking symbolic language out of the Bible. You're literalizing it, and you're giving a power to something that doesn't exist instead of realizing that it symbolizes something inside of you that if you understand where it is, you can deal with it and get rid of it. We haven't been allowed to do that. What did Jesus say? That Satan is the father of lies. Where does lies come from? James says they come from the tongue, which is connected to the mind. It all comes out of the mind. That's where lies come from. No place else. Let me show you something. Real quick Bible study. Page 3 in your Bible, Genesis 3, okay? Page 3 in your Bible, Genesis 3. We're a little bit late, but give me a minute with it. And you with me? Genesis 3, verse 15. You see this? Okay, what does it say? And I will put enmity between you and the woman. This is between the serpent and the spirit, is actually what it's talking about. I will put enmity. There will be an enmity. What is the enmity? What is it that separates you from God? What is the enmity that is created? What is the devil? What is Satan? Okay, let's go. Page 148 in your New Testament, and we'll show you what it is. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. Okay? Now, you with me? Page 148? Go to verse 7. What is the enmity? Because the carnal mind is enmity against God. It is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be. There's the remnant. There's your devil. There's your Satan. You know what? Do you know that do you know that when you get, that mind talking to you and it says, you shouldn't do this, or you should do that, or you shouldn't have done that, or maybe you should say this, or maybe you shouldn't say this. I don't think you should go there. Yes, maybe I don't. I do all of this stuff, and it accuses. You know what the Hebrew word is? Shaitan. S-H-A-T-A-N. You know what it means? Accuser. That's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. Shaitan, which means accuser. Now here's one that I got to show you this. Hell. You know hell? Huh? Hell? You're going to say that this is a word from Babylon. Where'd it come from? Why don't they call it petunia or onions or Philadelphia? Well, they're the same thing. I mean, what? Kidding. Philadelphia. We have some people in Philadelphia. God bless Philadelphia. Oh, well, you know where the word comes from? You'll never guess the origin of that word. This is it. Hell. It is Scandinavian. And it is from Scandinavian mythology, and it is a place of learning. Place of learning. And here's the story. There was a lady named Frigga. But anyhow, that's her name. And her son was named Balder. Now, these are Scandinavians, okay? And Balder screwed up. So he was sent to hell. So she went and got one of the gods to go into hell to find Balder. He found him sitting on a rock reading a book in hell. We created all of this other trash about burning forever and all of this nonsense. Never, ever. We're the only culture in the world that believes of a personal devil, because we have totally misinterpreted all of this stuff. Okay? Jesus said in Mark 4:11, all these things are done in parables. It's all symbolic. And so now you should be able to deal with the fact there is no devil, there is no Satan. These are symbolic terms for that power which is of God inside of you, which if you mishandle it can be evil. Nuclear energy can light up the world, but in the wrong hands that same power can kill millions instantly. You can't blame the power. You blame those who mishandle it. You go swimming in the lake. It's beautiful. I'm tiny, whiny, I'm swimming in the lake, and I'm going to go and have my little Kool-Aid or whatever they do after I get out of the lake and my hot dogs. But you don't know how to swim. You're drowned. It's the end of tiny, whiny. Is the lake evil? No, the lake's not evil. You didn't know how to handle the power of the lake, and you died. So that's what God is trying to say. I create good. Hey, look. Come on. You ready? You with me? What did God say? I create good. Right? I create evil. Okay? Let's take this out. And let's put that. That's all it is. That is all it is. God and the devil. Good and evil. That's what God has said. I've given it to you. You use it properly, it's God. You use it improperly, it's evil. There's nothing more to it than that. The devil. Okay? So, therefore, I want to give you a deep revelation from Buddha. And I got off the track a little bit. Buddha said this, quote, Buddhahood, or what we call Christ consciousness, can exist only because we have all of the other 9 worlds and those other aspects that we would rather keep hidden away. Because just think for a moment what he's saying. What's the sense of Christ if you don't have to be transformed? What's the sense of it? Who needs it? What are you going to kill this guy? For what? Bleeding and hurting and hitting thorns. For what? Everything is okay. But because the 10 worlds are inherent in everybody, in the lower consciousness, and there has to be someone to save you. And so he came, and he came up against the religions of the world. He says, don't worry about the fakakta with all of the religion and the rules and regulations. Get inside of yourself and find the kingdom. And he got killed for it. And believe me, if there wasn't a law against it, how long do you think I'd last? If we were back into the days somebody was talking about how long do you think I'd last? There is a law against killing people. But you see, Buddha, now listen to your nature. Buddha compares your nature to the lotus flower. And this is what he said. It is only because its roots are buried deep in the muck of a muddy swamp that it is able to produce such a beautiful blossom. Huh? In other words, it's only because you have the muck of ordinary desires and sexual desires and tempers and all of those things that we come to the place of meditation. Otherwise, you wouldn't come. Otherwise, you wouldn't come. What would you come for? If everything was hunky-dory, why would you come here? Just imagine. What the heck are you doing sitting here anyhow? Think of that. Think of that. Something put you in this chair. Something in life has been unsatisfactory. You don't have to come back here. I hope you do, but you don't have to. And you have to find within yourself. My job is not to convince you of anything. My job is to get you to think. Get little children to think. Get little children in this place not to fear other religions. Get little children to embrace that all of these other cultures and religions, they're all talking about the same God, the same Christ with a different name, instead of perpetuating the shooting and the killing and the fear of one another. So, there's a central part of Buddha that is in 3 important phrases, and because we're running a little late, I'm not going to write them down, and you don't have to on here. But Bono Soko Bodai means the desires of ordinary life are at the same time enlightenment, because those desires, when they lead to the frustrations and discouragement, will lead you to the point of meditation. They'll force you there. There's one called Soji Soko Nahan, meaning the sufferings of life and death are nirvana. It is the same thing. That is, because of the sufferings, we are lifted above them into that place of rest. That's why it said Jesus Christ learned through those things that he suffered. And there's Sokshin Japutso, meaning same body becomes Buddha. What does that mean? That's one that we should just stop with for a second. Same body becomes Buddha. You know what that means? That means that one becomes Buddha without changing one's basic nature as a human being. You are Andy, and you become Buddha. You are Emil, you become Buddha. You are Don. You are exactly the way you are. The transformation happens deep within as you retain your personality. That's why Jesus Christ said God is a God of the living, not of the dead. You don't get this when you die and check out somewhere. You get it now as you're alive, and you become one with it. And was a guy sitting here a few nights ago, and I was telling him, he said, well, wait a minute, you're just saying the same thing. If we all begin to follow Buddha, then we're all going to be Buddhists. So what have we gained? Oh, we gained everything, because Buddha said, my desire is that you reach that place where there is no Buddha. See, you reach that bliss where there is just the eternal God. Buddha didn't even believe, he just believed in that reverence within yourself that would take you to the point of oneness with God. That's what it says, and Jesus said, you take away the key. But instead of all this, to sum it up, express your desires, no matter how bizarre. Would you like to stand up and tell your desires? Your bizarre desires? Come on, TV. You first. Whoa. Uh-oh. Yeah. Let me conclude this with the word. I wish you could copy these down, because along with Jesus Christ and Krishna, Shakyamuni Buddha uttered not that many words that were recorded, but a few quotes, and this is one of them. Listen to this from Shakyamuni Buddha. At the start, I pledged to make all the people perfectly equal to me without any distinction between us. Therefore, it is not difficult to become Buddha. And then this is what he says. Now listen how beautiful this is. A bird's egg contains nothing but liquid. Yet by itself, this develops into a beak, 2 eyes, and all the other parts which form a bird and can fly into the sky. We too are like the egg, ignorant and base, but when nurtured by chanting Myoho Renge Kyo, we develop the beak of the Buddha's 32 features and the feathers of his 80 characteristics, and are then free to soar into the skies of ultimate reality. And so, as we go on, then we'll look closer at Myoho Renge Kyo and what it means. And I celebrate this with such joy, to be able to share with you the teachings of such men of God, and to be able to realize that by your understanding Buddha, you become a disciple of Christ. That by your understanding Buddha, you become a real Christian, one who obeys Jesus Christ. That you just challenge the world as you lift yourself up to Jesus Christ and his lordship in your life. Because if Jesus Christ is your Lord, then you'll do what Buddha said.